Hey everyone, Sycra here, and today I'm going to be doing something a bit different. I'm doing a traditional drawing. So I got myself a new camera so I can do these recordings now. And I figured I'd do still life drawing. So I'm drawing the skull here. And now it's not going to look the same on my drawing as it does on the screen because I'm looking at it at a slightly different angle than the camera is. And I'll try and remedy that a bit later, but for now, it is what it is. Okay, so I'm starting out by doing, a rough outline of the drawing, just measuring, and in the beginning I was holding the pencil really far back, and that gets a very light touch. The problem with it is that it's not entirely too accurate. So you're losing some of the accuracy, but you're gaining, a very light touch. So anytime I hold the pencil really far back, I'm usually doing it for the sake of having a light line, or I'm doing it to get some smooth shading, to get some nice, even tones. And it's not important at this point to be perfectly accurate anyway. Just because I'm just laying in basically where things are, and I want to be able to change my mind. When I do decide that, this is something more concrete, I tend to hold the pencil closer to the lead, and that usually indicates that I'm more certain about the marks I'm making, and usually they come out darker as well. So here you can see I'm, holding the pencil fairly close to the tip, and I quite like holding the pencil this way. It's similar to how I hold charcoal, and I don't know, it feels different than when you hold it like a writing instrument, but here you'll see I kind of hold it like a writing instrument when I want to get some crisp lines, some details. And I'm gonna go and lay in a tone for the background. It's pretty important to lay in the background fairly early on, because what you want to do is just establish your values, get your tones right. And so it's difficult to do that if everything is the same tone. I know the skull is going to be lighter than the background, and I'm not going to go as dark as what the background really is, pretty much because I'm using pencil, and it just takes a really long time to get very dark with pencil. If I was using charcoal or paint, I probably would go and, actually make the values accurate to what they are. Here I'm using a 6B pencil to darken it. I used a 2B pencil, a B pencil, and the 6B pencil. So now what I'm doing is I'm using a crumpled up toilet paper, and I'm using it to blend with. I know you can get chamois, or what do they call chamois? You can get a chamois and use that to blend. But I've always found toilet paper just as effective. Tissues work, so do paper towels. Just whatever works for you. It doesn't always have to be fancy art tools. And there I use my finger. Some people say not to use your fingers when drawing because you leave grease on the page, and that's a valid point. Because this isn't something I'm thinking of, really, like, I'm not going to frame this or anything, so I don't really care if there's grease. But I suppose if I was doing it for a client, then maybe I wouldn't use my finger too much, just in case, but I'd be using better quality paper as well. Right now I'm just using I don't know, it's a Canson sketchbook. It's just like a normal sketchbook. It's nothing really fancy. And the pencils as well. They're the Stadler I don't know what they're called, but Stadler pencils, and yeah, they're just a good all-purpose pencil, but you know, they're not charcoal pencils, or there's really nothing in terms of the tools I use. There's nothing really, you know, crazy. So some of the areas are catching glare because the light's reflecting off them. So there's like a dark area in the jaw, and that seems light, but, you know, it's just the glare. And here I'm using a kneaded eraser. I use the kneaded eraser in three ways. One way is, of course, to erase. The other way is actually as a drawing tool. I can bend it to a point, and then if I have some dark tone, I can actually draw out highlights. And the final way is if I want to lighten a tone. And I've made a video on traditional drawing techniques, and in this video I go over how I use the various tools like the kneaded eraser, and also you might notice that my pencil lead, not the 6B one right now, but this one, the B that I'm using, it's got a fairly long lead, and in that traditional drawing video I explain how I go about sharpening that as well. I really like using a long lead because it just opens up so many more possibilities in terms of what kinds of marks you can make. I can make broad, flat strokes, or I can make more precise strokes. And when I shade, I can use, you know, when I use the broad part of the pencil, it's actually kind of sharpening it, because what I do is I spin my pencil. And that's, again, something I mentioned in my drawing techniques video. So I'm really focused on values, trying to get the values correct. So I didn't just go ahead and darken the skull eye sockets, because they're not dark. And you can see from the reference I'm using, the model, that, you know, they're not that dark in there. And here I'm using a Sycra electric eraser. It's great for just, you know, bringing out the white of the paper once it's been lost. So I'll let that actually get lost at times, just so that there's a tone to the paper. And then when I do use the electric eraser, then it brings out sharp highlights, and it's almost like you used gouache or a white colored pencil to bring out those highlights. So when I'm drawing teeth like this, I'm not drawing like the whole tooth, I'm just drawing the shadow shapes. And here I realized that the mouth was too low, so I wanted to erase that. And this is something I would recommend, that you don't be afraid to make big changes. The lighter you press with your pencil, the easier it is to make any kind of changes. It's when you're pressing really hard that, you know, you'll get problems, because things won't erase properly. You'll actually go ahead and damage the paper. So here I changed the view, and let's get it into focus, and hopefully now you have a better view of the image. And sorry, this is my first time recording with this, so it's not perfect. I probably, for the next one, if I do one, would start, you know, in a better position. Also, I'm in a pretty uncomfortable position, and I haven't done these drawings in a long time. I've been doing a lot of traditional sketching with a mechanical pencil. And so, you know, it's been a while since I've done a finished drawing like this. So you'll notice, for different marks, I hold the pencil differently. And all that just comes from practice, from using the pencil and just, holding it in different ways, at different angles in order to get the effect you want. And what I'd recommend if you're just starting out is have a blank page, big page, and just scribble, make different marks, just see what's possible with your tool. Because if you only use your pencil the way you're used to writing, then you're really limiting yourself. And also, if you pay too much mind to the tool you're using, in terms of I need this pencil because it was recommended and I can't do things with what I currently have. Maybe you're just using, cheaper paper. And I would say, paper is important, and so are your tools, but they're not that important. It's fine. You can use anything, especially when you're starting out and you're learning. The thing that happens when you are more experienced is then you can make use of the paper or the tools much more. And usually it's a case where maybe you're not a beginner, maybe you're intermediate, and you've been using cheaper supplies for a long time. And then you're just wondering, why does my work look not as good as someone else's? Here I'm using an envelope as a mask. It was just whatever I could find around because I wanted to lighten an area and I didn't want to get in the way of the other area. Anyway, so as I was saying, when you're at that intermediate level and you feel stuck and you don't know how some people are getting some effects, that's really when it may be the brush, it may be the pencil, it may be the paper, it may be the tool. Because, it does make a difference. But that's when you're a little bit advanced already. That's when you've got some mileage. In the beginning, if you're just starting out, and by starting out, I mean, you've probably less than 2 years that I would consider that, you're still in the beginning stages. Then really don't worry about it. Just build up your mileage. Keep drawing a lot. Not much more. I think I'm nearing the end now. Just going to darken in the lower portion. And I make lines in different directions just to smooth out the tone. This isn't the smoothest shading ever. I could go over that a lot more and be more careful, but it kind of gets the job done. So I think that's it, and thanks for watching.